He was only 12, barefoot and sunburnt, standing in the middle of a dusty street in Manila with a broken guitar hanging from his shoulder. His name was Elian Cruz, a name no one in the world knew yet, but destiny had plans that would echo far beyond those narrow alleys. Every day, while other children went to school, Elian wandered through markets singing old songs for a few coins. His father had died when he was 6, and his mother washed clothes in other people's homes, barely making enough to buy rice. Still, Elian smiled. Whenever he sang, he forgot how hungry he was, forgot that his slippers had holes, forgot that his dreams seemed too big for a boy so small. He had learned English from the songs tourists played on their phones. One of them was, Hotel California. He didn't understand every word at first, but he felt it, the loneliness, the mystery, the longing in the melody. He sang it every night beside the small candle in their wooden hut while his mother listened, closing her eyes, whispering that one day people would hear his voice and never forget it. One rainy afternoon, an American tourist stopped to listen to him outside a cafe. The woman's eyes widened as Elian played the intro of Hotel California on his cracked guitar. When he finished, she clapped, gave him 100 pesos, and said, "You belong on a stage, kid." Elian didn't know what stage she meant, but her words stayed with him. 2 months later, that same woman uploaded his street performance on social media. Within days, millions of people watched the barefoot boy sing with a voice too pure for his age. Comments flooded in, "Goosebumps. This kid is an angel. He needs to be on America's Got Talent." Elian had no idea what was happening until a man from a TV network found him. He told Elian and his mother that the AGT team had seen the viral video and wanted to invite him to audition in Los Angeles. His mother thought it was a scam at first. "We have no passport, no money," she said. But the man smiled. "Everything will be arranged." 2 months later, Elian stepped off a plane for the first time, clutching his tiny guitar. He had never seen skyscrapers or felt cold air like that. The night before the audition, he and his mother stayed in a small hotel near the theater. She held his hand and said, "No matter what happens tomorrow, you already made me the proudest mother in the world." The next morning, as he stood backstage, his hands shook. Around him were singers with designer clothes and perfect hair. Elian looked down at his plain shirt and worn shoes. He whispered a prayer in Tagalog, asking his Father in heaven to stay with him. When his name was called, he stepped into the blinding lights of the AGT stage. The theater was packed. Thousands of faces watched as he walked toward the microphone. Simon Cowell leaned forward, squinting slightly. Sofia Vergara smiled warmly. Heidi Klum gave him an encouraging nod, and Howie Mandel waved. Simon asked, "What's your name?" "Elian, sir. I come from the Philippines." Simon said, "How old are you, Elian?" 12. "And what are you going to do for us today?" "I will sing and play guitar." "What's the song?" "Hotel California, sir." Simon raised an eyebrow. "That's a big song." Elian smiled nervously. "Yes, but it's my favorite. It's like home to me." The audience chuckled softly, sensing his sincerity. Then the lights dimmed. Elian adjusted his guitar strap, strummed the first chords, and a silence spread through the hall. From the very first line, his voice was haunting. It wasn't just clear, it carried a sadness, a depth that no one expected from a child. His accent gave the song a delicate flavor, and the emotion in his tone wrapped around every note like a whisper from the soul. On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, you could feel time stop. Even Simon, known for his stone face, leaned back with his arms crossed, speechless. Halfway through the song, Elian closed his eyes, forgetting the audience, singing as if he were back on that Manila street, where only his mother and the wind listened. The crowd began to sway. The cameras zoomed in on Sofia wiping her eyes. When he reached the guitar solo, Elian didn't have a full band, just his old guitar, but the way his small fingers moved was pure magic. The sound filled the entire theater. He sang the final line softly, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave," then silence. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then the hall exploded in applause. People rose from their seats, cheering, crying, screaming his name. Elian blinked in disbelief. He thought maybe he'd made a mistake, but Simon stood up, something he rarely did. Simon said quietly, "Elian, I've been doing this show for many years. I've heard countless singers, but what you just did was something I'll never forget. You didn't just sing that song. You lived it." Howie wiped his eyes. "You reminded all of us what music is supposed to do, it's supposed to touch hearts, not just impress. Heidi said, "You are the reason this show exists. You made everyone feel something deep tonight." Sophia sniffed, smiling through tears. "Your voice is a gift from heaven. And your story, it's beautiful." Simon turned toward the audience. "I think we all agree he deserves more than a yes." Before Elian could understand what was happening, Simon pressed the golden buzzer. A storm of golden confetti burst into the air. Elian gasped, covering his mouth as tears streamed down his face. His mother, watching from backstage, collapsed to her knees, crying uncontrollably. The judges ran to hug him. Simon knelt down and said, "You came from nothing, but you gave us everything tonight." The moment went viral worldwide. Within hours, clips of Elian's performance filled the internet again, only this time he wasn't a street boy anymore, he was the golden boy of AGT. News outlets called him, the voice of Manila. People around the world wrote messages of love and support. A famous musician sent him a brand new guitar. Days later, Simon visited Elian backstage. "How are you feeling, champ?" Elian smiled shyly. "Still like a dream, sir." Simon nodded. "You know, I've seen many people get the golden buzzer, but very few carry this much soul. Whatever happens next, remember why you started." Elian promised he would. In the following weeks, he prepared for the semifinals. The show's crew gave him a vocal coach and a bigger stage setup. But Elian kept practicing alone, barefoot, sitting on the floor with his guitar, just as he used to do back home. When asked why, he said, "Because that's where my voice came from, the ground, the streets, and my heart." The night of the semifinals came. This time, the stage was darker, filled with soft lights that looked like stars. Elian chose to sing, "Tears in Heaven." As soon as the first line left his lips, the audience fell silent again. People who had followed his story online already knew how much loss and longing he carried inside. When he finished, the entire theater was crying. Simon whispered, "He's not just singing. He's healing." Even though the finale was filled with talented performers, Elian's performance remained the most viewed video of the season. He didn't win the trophy, an older group act did, but in every sense that mattered, Elian had already won. He received offers to perform around the world. Charities in the Philippines reached out to help his family. A music foundation offered to fund his education. Months later, Elian returned home. The same streets that once echoed with his voice for a few coins were now lined with banners welcoming him. Children ran beside him shouting his name. His mother couldn't stop smiling. They used part of his prize money to rebuild their small house and open a community music center for street kids. One evening, as the sun set, Elian sat on a wooden bench, his guitar on his lap. A small boy approached him, barefoot like he once was, and asked, "Kuya Elian, can you teach me how to sing?" Elian smiled. "Of course. But first, tell me why you want to sing." The boy thought for a second and said, "Because I want people to feel something." Elian nodded. That's the right answer. Years passed, and Elian became a symbol of hope across the Philippines. Every time he performed, Hotel California, people didn't just hear the song, they heard his journey, the hunger, the pain, the dreams, and the love that carried him through it all. But fame didn't change him. He always said, "If music ever stops feeling honest, I'll go back to the streets and start again." On the anniversary of his AGT audition, the show invited him back as a guest performer. The crowd erupted the moment he appeared on stage. Simon Cowell smiled proudly as Elian began singing the same song that started it all. But this time, he sang not as a poor boy, but as a young man who had touched millions. When he finished, the judges stood again, but Simon had tears in his eyes. He said, "Elian, I don't think I've ever told you this, but that night you sang, Hotel California, you reminded me why I love this show. You reminded the world that talent doesn't come from comfort, it comes from courage." Elian smiled, looked toward the camera, and said softly, "To every child singing on the street tonight, you are not invisible." The audience roared. Backstage after the show, his mother hugged him. "Do you remember when I said one day people would hear you?" She whispered, "I was wrong. They didn't just hear you, they felt you." He smiled. "That's all I ever wanted." Months later, a documentary about his life aired worldwide. Viewers wept as they saw footage of the barefoot boy who sang under the rain and the man he had become. It wasn't just about success, it was about resilience, love, and music's power to change lives. One evening, Elian returned once more to the same spot in Manila where he used to sing for coins. He sat there quietly, playing the same song. People gathered, recognizing him, but he told them, "Don't take videos. Just listen." He played Hotel California again, this time slower, gentler. Children sat on the pavement, listening with wide eyes. When he finished, an old vendor whispered, "It sounds different now." Elian smiled. "Because now I'm singing it for peace, not for bread." He placed a coin in the same old tin can that once collected his survival money. "For luck," he said. That night, he wrote a note in his journal, "Music gave me wings. But home will always be the ground I learned to stand on." Years later, when people talked about legendary AGT moments, his name always appeared on the list. The boy who made Simon cry. The voice that silenced 1,000 hearts. But to those who really knew him, Elian was more than that. He was proof that a song can come from anywhere, even from the dust of forgotten streets, and still reach the heavens. One fan once asked him in an interview, "What were you thinking when the confetti fell after the golden buzzer?" He laughed softly. "I wasn't thinking at all. I was just feeling. I thought about my mom, my dad, the people back home who sang with empty stomachs but full hearts. I thought maybe they could see me and believe in themselves too." As he spoke, his eyes glistened. "You know, when I sang that song, I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to make someone, somewhere, feel less alone." And that was what he did, for millions. When he turned 18, Elian started his own foundation for young musicians who couldn't afford instruments. He donated guitars to schools, held free workshops, and told every kid, "Don't wait for luck. Sing now, wherever you are." One day, while teaching a small girl to play chords, she asked, "Kuya Elian, do you still get nervous before performing?" He chuckled, "Always. But that's how you know it matters." By the time he was 25, Elian's voice had matured, but the soul in it remained untouched. He released his first album, a mix of English and Tagalog songs, and one track was a new version of Hotel California, recorded live in Manila with a choir of street children. It became a global hit. People said it felt even more powerful than the original. In interviews, Simon Cowell often said, "There are artists who win shows, and there are artists who win hearts." Elian Cruz did both, but Elian never chased fame. He stayed grounded, spending most of his time in small communities, teaching music to children who had once been invisible like he was. He said, "When I was a boy, music saved me. Now it's my turn to let music save others." One night, after a charity concert in Los Angeles, he sat alone in the empty theater. The janitor approached him and asked, "You've performed everywhere, kid. What's next for you?" Elian smiled. "Next, I think I'll go home again. There's always another child waiting to be heard." He looked up at the stage lights, remembering that first night, the trembling hands, the broken guitar, the disbelief when the golden confetti fell. He whispered, "Thank you." That whisper carried across the years like a quiet melody, reminding everyone that greatness doesn't come from where you start, it comes from how much heart you carry when no one is watching. And somewhere, deep in the heart of Manila, a barefoot boy picked up an old guitar and began to sing.